Hey, Planeswalkers, hope you're doing well and staying safe. Today is our weekly series, Friday Night Meta, my friends. One of my favorite things to do with yours truly, Meta Master Mythras here. So, a little sleep deprived, things are going well, baby's doing good, mommy's healthy, everyone's good. Let's see what we got going on this week here today with our meta analysis and gameplay in terms of what's going on for you in Magic the Gathering Arena, my friends. So with that said, appreciate you tuning in. Flip me a like if you enjoyed today's video. On top of that, if you have questions, if you got comments, love to hear from you as always down below or in the details where the Discord server information is, along with the timestamps where we will do a recap of last week. We'll break down best of one, we'll break down best of three standard. We're going to talk about some impact events, also break down a cool key deck for you. Last but not least, we'll cover that standard 2022 and give you a deck there as well, my friends. And last update here, we did complete our first ever tournament / league for the Mythras Multiverse. Thank you to everyone that participated. We had roughly 30 people, which is crazy. We'll talk a little bit about that more here in a second, so stay tuned, Planeswalkers. Now, with that, appreciate your support as always. Great ways to do that down below. Lots of great benefits to you as well. Discounts on things like sleeves and custom playmats. I'm a TCG player affiliate and things like that, and great ways to stay up to date on awesome things on the channel, my friends. So let's get into it here for our meta update. But before we do so, let's talk a little bit about what happened last week, because that's always important. So last week, Mono White Life Gain had fallen off as the reigning champion. Boros started to reign in that board, and then the big thing was the increase in archetype play. And generally what we find is that leads to an inverse in the win rates, which is exactly what we saw. So as the archetypes are increasing, the win rates were kind of dropping. And the other noteworthy thing there was that mono white deck, Life Gain was the deck kind of to get to Mythic there early out of the gate in the season. So then, and it was the most played in Mythic. Then when we get to best of 3 for standard here, we had a huge surprise with Rakdos skyrocketing to the top of the win rate for top 8. So we'll see if that's holding true this week. That's a big piece. Very quickly there, the other comment that I had made was quickly how things changed. If you read last week's piece within 24 hours, when I covered that there too. The other thing that was noteworthy was the absence of Team or Adventures or Luca in the aggregate view. We'll check on that again this week. We covered Gruul Magda or Gruul Adventures with a Ray of Enfeeblement, a big change, making it a huge powerhouse in the meta. Then standard 2022, some pieces there that were pretty important. Most of the meta kind of remained intact. Some of the biggest things that changed at the higher level competitive play, mono black control creeping in, and mono red goblins also starting to see a little bit more gameplay. Last but not least, we covered Orzhov Control, which was a very fun and popular deck and continues to be, and some key events with the SCG 5K and some standard 2022 events as well. So let's see what we have going on this week. We're going to break down our standard best of 1 here for you first. At aggregate, here's what we have going on across the board. We got Boros Winata in that first spot, mono white life gain, mono green stompy, cycling creeping back in here, and a host of other things. Then when we look at popularity, mono red aggro being number 1, Naya Winata falling off just so slightly, mono white life gain in that third spot there, rogues getting and being played a little bit more, so pretty important to keep an eye on these things. Then as we look at the aggregate, we can see how these things are starting to kind of compress. Generally that's what we see during later in the season. Same with the win rates start to compress here, except for that Sultai Ultimatum dropping off and taking a hit right now across the board. Then as we drill in and get a little bit more aggressive in terms of competitive play here in Platinum, we see mono white life gain at the top, Boros Winata, mono green stompy creeping back up there, and then at that higher end, Naya Winata, the most played, mono red followed by mono red, and then mono white life gain. So here's what we can see there. Dimmer rogues creeping back up. We can see this. I certainly know this that in my own gameplay as well this week. So something to be take note of as you continue to try and progress here and make that mythic for that double rewards right now. So let's go ahead and we'll go tier by tier here so that you can see what's going on and see some of the differences. Mono black auras there, Celestia life gain in bronze, platinum. A different view here. Again, auras is still in play. Then we got gold. Here's what we got going on in gold. We see again Boros Sonata at the top, cycling doing well. Now we get in that competitive scene with platinum. So platinum again, here's what this looks like right now. Boros Sonata, highest win rate, mono red, aggro being played quite a bit. Diamond, we got Naya Winata, huge jump. We got mono white life gain doing really, really well in diamond right now. So that might be the deck for you to break through into mythic. And last but not least, we have mythic. So mono white life gain is the most played still in mythic. Mono green Stompy's doing really well. We got dimmer mill. So that's a new one and interesting to see here. So we'll keep an eye on this because that might make a difference. We got it at the 8th slot there as well in terms of the archetype played. So very, very important for us to keep an eye on things like that. Let's go ahead and we'll blow it all the way back out. We're going to go take a look at best of 3 now for today. So here's what we got going on at aggregate for best of 3. Naya Winata, Dimmer Rogues, number 2, Gruul Magda, Teamer Adventures back in there. And then we've lost Rakdos Sacrifice. So very, very interesting to see that. Gruul Magda, again, in terms of play, Sultai Ultimatum, getting in that number 2 slot, Naya Winata. Let's see what we got going on here. So again, look at this. Bam! Gruul Magda really falling off hard. Boom! Naya Winata falling off hard. Sultai Ultimatum, my friends, creeping way, way, way back up. So that makes a lot of sense. Again, aggro being replaced, or aggro mid-range being replaced by a late game deck. So that is generally the cycle that we see, and we're seeing that come to fruition. Now look at these win rates. We see these things creeping around. Everything's going up, which is pretty interesting, but we do lose. We're losing a lot of the decks. When these were here at higher capacity, we have about 5 to 10%, meaning that there's other decks creeping into that meta, which allows us to have healthier win rates across the boards a lot of times. So very, very important to keep an eye on. Let's go to the more competitive scene, and then we'll break down our stats. Fairly similar at the popularity, a little different here in terms of what we saw at the top end. Again, Dimmer Rogues being a deck right now to contend with, so keep an eye on that. Now let's blow this thing out. We're gonna go to bronze. Here's what we got going on in bronze. Again, as we know, most of the times we don't see a ton of this stuff. Is it dragons back in the meta at silver? At these lower ends here, let's go to gold. Gold, we start to pick up and see mono green Stompy not doing well. Gruul Magda, Sultai Ultimatum doing well. Again, Sultai Ultimatum being heavily, heavily played in gold. Now we get to platinum. Dimmer Rogues is certainly there. So keep an eye on that. We got Dimmer Control in there as well. Teamer Adventure showing up. Then as we get to diamond, more competitive, Naya Winata, Sultai Ultimatum doing really well. Gruul Magda, Sultai Ultimatum, almost the same. Naya Winata falling off. We got Teamer Adventure. Rakdos Sacrifice is still there in diamond. And then as we get to mythic, here's what we got in the mythic cut. Gruul Magda, Sultai Ultimatum doing well. Teamer Adventure, Sultai, Mono Green, and Jeskai Mutate's still in there. So that is the meta view here for us for standard today and best of 3. So we're gonna blow this out here. Today's deck and this week's deck is Sultai Ultimatum. It has certainly powered its way back, as we saw here. We can go ahead and take a look. We'll look at this one that's 61%. I'll make sure to have a nice copy for you of these decks down below. We can see what we got going on. Should we buy it for 300? Maybe when we get back into competitive play in person. Anyway, here we go. So changes here, you see the Pestilent Haze being a big piece of that. We got a bunch of these things. We still run Vornaclax, a lot more Elder Gargroth main board. Shadow's Verdict, Pulachronos is really helping. And then we can see a lot of the other stuff that we have at the top end. Sideboard here, again, Karavek, big for a lot of those kind of mid-range decks. The traditional Naya Adventures deck, or Giganta one. So those are all big pieces. Let's go ahead and look at the archetype. And then we go to matchups. Here's what we got going on in the matchups. Very good against sacrifice decks. Nigh Adventure, even on Teamer Adventure, Dimmer Control, again, Sultai Ultimatum, does well against Mono White Aggro right now, Mono Green Stompy, Dimmer Rogues, Gruul Magda, Mono Red Aggro, and Naya Winata. So really feeding off some of those more early game decks. And a big piece here why it's doing well is you see not as much of this per se in the meta, or sorry, not as much in terms of archetype. They're certainly there. We've seen that with Naya Adventures and things like that. But that's pretty important to keep an eye on. Take that back. Win rate, I did that wrong. Other way, not super good against Naya Winata, not super good against Mono Red Aggro. Gruul Magda, not as good against. Dimmer Rogues, not as good against. Mono Green Zombie, not as good against. It is good against everything else. There you go. I got that wrong. Sleep deprivation, my friends. I'm sorry. So certainly, again, with some of that change in the meta and some of the changes there, it's still a good deck against these. Again, depending on how you're boarding, those kinds of things, that's what makes the difference, as we generally see that. And these are a lot more matches, so that certainly also makes a difference. So that is the deck that we have today, Sultai Ultimatum, my friends. Now we're going to go talk about some events from the weekend. So first off here, we had our lovely nothing really in standard big this week. So we will talk about standard 2022. First off, we have the Black Pearl. So shout out to Nathan. I'm on my list to do an updated Dimmer Control deck for you. But here's the results from Black Pearl. We see a little bit more wide range, particularly in the tournament play and best of 3 stuff that we're beginning to see in the standard 2022 meta. So I always advocate to keep an eye on this, because it's going to be pretty important for you in terms of what we're seeing. Again, a little bit different view cut here in terms of what we see going into the top 8. So very powerful and awesome to see. And again, congrats Nathan there as well. And then we did close out our first ever tournament here with the Mythras Multiverse August Standard 2022 League. We had roughly 30 people. Super fun. Hats off to Scylla. Scylla took it down with Grixis Dragons. You can check that video out. I did that this week. Super fun. Alex, Sin, and Fashion all did very well here in terms of the board as well, and so did everyone else. So we had a lot of fun. Congratulations to Scylla and the rest of the crew there that participated. You can stay up to date on future tournaments and leagues like this by being in the Discord server, or staying up to date on stuff going on in the channel, or any form of communication that I have available to you as well. So very exciting. We had a ton of fun and lots of learnings, and I was certainly excited to start handing out a lot of these prizes to folks. So well earned and a lot of fun. So thank you for bearing with me as well for all the family stuff that's been going on. Last but not least, one thing that I did want to call out, because we did cover Insight Esports a lot, lots of controversy here. If you're curious about it, go check out MTGA Arena Zone article on it. I did not write this, but Paul did. But just wanted to call this out. If you're interested, it is tough to run some of these tournaments. This talks about some of the challenges and things that you can run into doing that. We certainly learned, and I can never be more thankful for the community in our Discord server and the community in general. It does take a group of people to do it, and certainly looking forward to doing more, and we learned a lot in our first tournament. So thank you for that as well to everyone else. Now, next we are going to move into our standard 2022 meta analysis, because it's important. I know many of you are looking at this. We definitely see some changes here this week, which is pretty important to keep an eye on. So here's what we got in aggregate. We start to see Simic ramp creeping in. We got mono red goblins, the control decks, Orzhov, angels, and control starting to pop down further. Dimmer control still not cracking that 50%. Top end still fairly intact, but again, that biggest one's that Simic ramp popping in there again. If we get up to the competitive side of the house, things shift around a little bit. Is it dragons getting a little bit better, but the control decks continue to fall down and off. And then again, similar style here on the meta. But let's go ahead and drill in for those of you that really enjoy these cuts. We got Rakdos Treasures here entering in the bottom. Then at silver, we got mono black control. We talked a little bit about that. Celestial life gain. You can see some of those win rates. Then as we move into gold, we got Orzhov Control at the top of the list there. So a little bit bigger in terms of change ups. We got dimmer control being even. Then when we get to platinum, we get the more competitive scene. We got mono white aggro, mono green stompy, Simic ramps, the big one there. Is it dragons doing well as well? Then as we move into diamond here, we got mono white aggro, mono green stompy, mono red goblins, and Simic ramp. And then last but not least, we hit our mythic, and here's what we got in mythic. So very, very powerful in terms of everything that is going on here, with mono white aggro, Simic ramp, like I said, mono green stompy, is a dragon. So we start to see a lot of those things shifting up here, and then again, so very big changes this week. Last but not least here, let's go ahead and check out this week's deck, which is Simic ramp. So here's what we got going on with Simic ramp. This is certainly a blowout with Cyclone Summoner. If you haven't seen this, I'll make sure to have the list down below. You can check out that gameplay. But when we go and look up the matchups, I'm going to get it right this time. The biggest thing here is it doesn't do good against mono white aggro, but it does well against almost everything else. The biggest piece was it was designed to really feed off of things like mono green stompy. It does well against a lot of those other decks. So that is certainly something of note and noteworthy to pay attention to. This one runs Glimpse of the Cosmos. It's been a little bit more refined since the one I played, but it's also gotten a little bit more control-y as well, and running Coma and Ashaya and dragons and Quandrix. So a little bit different list here in terms of this one, but it is a very, very powerful deck, as we have seen before in the past and some of the gameplay. So with that said, Planeswalkers, we're going back over here. We can see our best of 3 close out this week. We had a lot of changes happening here. We've seen Rogues pop in. We've seen Sultai Ultimatum doing much better. Best of 1 has changed up a little bit there as well, as we can see through the stages. Rakdos Sacrifice has kind of fallen out. Teamwork Ventures also getting back in there. And then best of 3, Simic ramp doing really, really well. So Planeswalkers, always appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Flip me a like if you enjoyed the video today. If you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to let me know down below. Hop in the Discord server. That information's there in the details for you, along with deck lists and other great content, website information, articles, those kinds of things. An article for this particular, as we do every week, and hope you enjoyed it. So with that, thank you again. Great ways to stay up to date on content on the channel, and other ways to support and good benefits for you on YouTube memberships as well as patrons. So thank you. And with that, stay tuned, because we got more top decks coming your way for standard 2022, historic, and we got jank. On top of that, tier list coming. I promise we're gonna get a historic one here soon, so stay tuned for that. And then last but not least, Friday night meta, my friends. So stay safe, Planeswalkers. Take care. We'll see you again soon. Until next time, Mythras out.